Welcome to the BitGeek podcast. I'm your host, Ron Avis, and sitting with me on the couch to my left is my co-host, the Prince of Pixels,
Nick Wright.
Also joining us today, returning again, GB Blackrock,
Mark Baker-Wright.
And today we're going to be doing a tribute to Toys R Us. It's so hard to say goodbye.
That was so sad.
All right, friends, the dust has settled, the sun is set, and unfortunately, Toys R Us is officially gone, at least here in the States. This is actually a little bit of inside baseball for you folks who just watch us but don't know what goes on with the show. This will be our third time recording this episode. We tried recording this back in when was that? When the news first broke that all Toys R Us's were gonna? Was it like April?
Yeah, because earlier this year there was like a handful of them that were closing.
Right.
And then I want to say like around April-ish or so. Mark would probably know better.
I'm actually trying to remember. I thought it was earlier, but I also think that in relation to the fact that your birthday's in March, if you thought it was before your birthday, you would have said February or March. So it must have been in April.
I don't think it was that early that they announced that all were closing.
The reason I'm thinking April, is I remember the day that I went up there and did the little tribute video that I edited, put together. It was such a pretty day. It was warm and nice.
Well, that'd be pretty easy to look up. Let me look up on this.
It doesn't necessarily matter, but anyway,
it's been a while now, though.
We decided it would be good to go ahead and get together and invite Mark in, because Mark has a lot of fond memories of Toys R Us, as many of us do. We were all Toys R Us kids, growing up, and the fact that they were not only just closing down some of the stores, like most towns or most cities had at least two, and in a lot of cases one was closing, but it wasn't like we're losing you forever. It was just a matter of, is your childhood Toys R Us going to be closing down forever? But you might have that other one still.
Yeah, because like we thought we were safe.
Yeah.
Because they announced like a whole bunch of them were closing.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, that one's closing, that one's closing. But the one, by, our childhood one, it's like, okay, it's safe. It's still staying open. It's like, you just dodged a bullet.
Dodged a bullet, right. And the news had been, going around for years that Toys R Us wasn't in good shape. And it was only a matter of time before they would close anyway, because brick and mortar stores are just kind of being put out of business left and right by, not just Amazon, but that's just the nature of business. Not every business can go on for over 100 years.
Right.
And, Toys R Us.
I'll tell you, though.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, astonished that Toys R Us is now gone, but Kmart's still around.
That's true.
Kmart's had tons of problems, but they're still around.
I mean, there's a number of times I thought Kmart was gone.
Was it because does Kmart own Sears, or does Sears own Kmart?
Sears owns Kmart, actually. I think it's the way that works.
So maybe they're being propped up somehow by that. But Sears is another store that's in bad shape. One of the stores in one of the local malls, the Sears is closed, and we just have the one left.
And the one that we've got left, it's like I feel like they don't even try anymore. I'm like,
yeah.
I've been to that mall, and like the Sears will close like a good half hour earlier than like everything else. Like, the mall will close at like 9 o'clock or whatever. And I'll be in the mall walking around and they'll close down. It's like,
really, guys?
Yeah.
I don't know a single person that just shops at Sears anymore. Like, it used to be that they had Craftsman, at least. It was an exclusive, and many people bought their tools from Sears. Yeah. And I think there were some exclusives they had in the automotive department, probably like batteries that people were just accustomed to buying and were, trusted that brand. But, they're just, there's no reason to go to Sears. There weren't a lot of reasons for me to go to Sears anyway, ever. Mm-hmm. That feels like a 50s, 60s, 70s kind of establishment anyway. Once places like Walmart and Target came along, who shops at Sears? It hardly ever. But the point I was trying to make is we thought we had at least one, and then the news came out very sadly that they were going to have to close. every store. And, here we are. I guess the end of June, the very last Toys R Us closed.
Right.
Everyone, very sad. People, there were a lot of tweets and messages going around on the internet when the news first broke. But then you got those last, there was the meme of Geoffrey all packed up with his little traveler's suitcase with the, waving goodbye from the store. I think everybody saw that.
Yeah.
But there was that one really neat, also that photo where I guess like a crew that was taking down the store found that Mario 64 or Mario Kart.
You telling me about that?
Oh my god,
it was like so dusty.
Oh
looking.
yeah, it just had 20 years of dust on it and dirt.
Found like they just got kicked under the shelves or something somewhere, and just been there for like 20 years.
Yeah, and then nobody just ever cleaned under there, I guess. I don't, or somebody wedged it under there so far on purpose.
I imagine it just kind of fell behind, and
right. It didn't get kicked under.
It. Yeah, I don't think it was on purpose.
But I would go and when I first made that video, the purpose of me making that video was I wanted to preserve the memory of Toys R Us without it being picked clean, because I'd already been out to the other store that was closing and doing all of the, the sales and the store was just over time getting picked clean and wasn't even recognizable as a Toys R Us anymore. I felt very sad and didn't want to see that. So for a couple of months, I didn't go back to that store. And it wasn't until 3 weeks or so before that I knew for sure they were going to be closing. I would go in there and I'd say, well, I'm going to go see if I can get, 50% off some games that maybe I'm interested in. Because by then the sales really were nice. They were worth going in for. The sales were never very good for a long time.
Yeah.
But, all those, it was very silly and stupid and sentimental. I kind of walked all over the store and like used the bathroom even. I'm just the last time I'm going to use this bathroom. But it's gone. I drove past it today when I was on my way to the library.
Is it just me, or does it look like fresh and new almost? It looked clean. And the only thing I can think of is that it's just because they took all those closing and clearance signs down. And
maybe.
Everything. Because the white of the building, it just looks so clean.
I always feel like when a store closes for good, they immediately rip down all the signage that's the store signage.
Sometimes they do.
Yeah, and it like you said, it feels like new, like they've cleaned it. And who knows, perhaps they're trying to make it look presentable because another business could come in. And we've read stories where places like like Hobby Lobbies and other stores would go ahead and take over the space, because it's a lot of space. It's a pretty big store.
Well, and that's the issue, is it is a large space, and there are only a small handful of companies that would be interested in something of that size.
Yeah,
but they're out there.
Like at the mall, they would always have like a yearly thing, like a Halloween shop would like open up in that space.
I've seen on Twitter friends who've retweeted that's already happened. Like they've already started selling. Yeah, so that's
You'll
happening.
See a lot of those old Toys R Us become Halloween shops pretty soon.
Yeah. And then after that, we started hearing all these rumors. KB got themselves in the news. The people thought for a very brief moment that KB Toys was going to kind of come back and fill that space. They've had enough time to lay low and get their stuff together. And
it is coming back, but it's never going to fill the Toys R Us space. It was never that kind of store to begin with.
No.
And so they're looking to follow a similar model to what they did way back when. They'll pop up in malls. They'll probably only be seasonal, just for the Christmas season, and see how they go. So we're not really looking at anything permanent just yet.
Yeah. And that'll be welcome. It'll give me a reason to go to the mall, I guess. I rarely ever go to the mall anymore. And then, of course, there were all these, stories about how, I forget the maker of a couple of popular toy lines, Bratz and some others. This millionaire was going to try and, I guess, resurrect it by like a fourth of the closing stores and keep it open. And
yeah, that didn't work out.
Didn't work out. Now, are the stores in Canada still open, I guess, Mark?
They are. They had a different buyer. A lot of the, we'll just say, regional branches of Toys R Us in different countries either were already running well enough that they could attract another buyer, or well, that's basically the story right there.
Yeah.
Is they were able to survive by becoming independent. By having another buyer run them or being able to spin off somehow by themselves. Because there was just the one company, Toys R Us happened to be international, headquartered in the U.S. That's no longer the case. Now you're seeing a lot of little companies with the Toys R Us name in different countries, usually owned by a larger parent, but a lot of them will keep that name.
That's interesting. Now, do you know that since the liquidation, I guess, is now complete, who owns the brand Toys R Us right now?
Hasn't been decided yet.
Okay.
There will be an auction still.
Oh, okay.
Buyers will try to get the intellectual property rights, including the name, the giraffe, the logo, etc.
Yeah.
And that stuff's supposed to happen middle to late August.
Okay. So the news isn't, we're not done. Some more stories could pop up. Mm-hmm. And these people, as one of the side effects of Toys R Us closing down, unfortunately, is a lot of these toy stores, these big toy chains are feeling they're feeling the pinch. I was sad to read just this past week that Mattel had to lay off 2,200 employees.
Yeah.
Which was, I think, something like a fourth of their workforce.
Give or take on that. They're actually fairly local to the area I live in, so it's a big deal around here.
Oh man, and that and that's kind of not a surprise. People said up front in all the articles, it's going to be Mattel's going to feel it hard because that was their biggest customer, and you don't see that great collection, that giant aisle of Barbie and Lego. Well, Lego is another company, but I got to imagine they're feeling the heat too. They have to be.
Lego is another company. They have such a huge popularity internationally,
yeah.
and they also have their own stores that they will feel it less than a Mattel or a Hasbro. But of course, they're going to feel it too.
Yeah, aren't they owned by the same people that give us Hello Kitty or something like that?
Oh no, that is a different company.
Okay.
Japanese company.
Gotcha.
Lego is Norwegian.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, that's right. I remember that now. So yeah, Mattel's laid off people.
Or maybe Sweden. It's one of the Scandinavian.
One of the Scandinavian countries. But alongside all of the the employees who had lost their jobs, not suddenly, people knew they had time to go out. I was very sad, kind of, to learn that on that trip, that video that I made, I was speaking to one of the employees as I was checking out, and I was sort of just chit chatting with all of the employees, how how's it going? Is this I'm sorry, that kind of thing.
Right.
And they were all very polite. It's like, yeah, it's okay. I've worked here a couple of years, and it's just part time for me, and yada yada. But as I was speaking to the person that was checking me out, because I'd bought some things, I had to make that final purchase. What I thought was going to be my final purchase. And I asked, what are there, who has the longest seniority? Who's been around here the longest? And the girl said, well, you'd actually might be surprised that there is still a girl that works here part-time, a couple of days a week, she has been here nonstop since the store opened. And that it was so heartwarming and nice, at the same time so very sad.
Right.
I was going to try and get to an interview with her if I could. I got her name, and I called her, and I actually spoke to her on the phone. She was a very nice woman, and there were some deals where she just wasn't sure if she was allowed to speak. She didn't know who I was. Am I the media? I'm like, no, ma'am, I'm nobody. I'm just doing this podcast, and I love Toys R Us. I'm going to miss it, and I would just really like to talk to you about Toys R Us and the old days and the changes that it's gone through. I just had so many questions. But and she's I'll get back with you. I got to talk to the store managers to make sure it's okay. And she never got back with me, and I never did reach out to her again. I didn't want to harass this woman, but I did talk to her for a few minutes while she was at work, and it was like, how special is Toys R Us, Steven? She's, oh, it's very special to me, as you might imagine. I've worked here for over 30 years. So
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't know how old she was, but I picture she was probably in her early 20s when she first got the job, and
yeah, just whole life has been there.
The whole life has been Toys R Us, and just probably holds that place. It's just such a special, nobody can survive on 2 days a week someplace. So she's probably got some other job. It's her primary source of income, but she just wanted to hang on to Toys R Us.
Yeah, something sentimental about it.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, that kind of drove it home for me a little bit extra.
Yeah,
and, so
that's really cool.
And our store opened, and I went back and did research, and I don't have the exact date, and it's not that important, but our store opened in 1984. It was during that big growth period of Toys R Us when, you know, there were a lot of stores around, but then they hit this big growth spurt and opened a whole bunch of stores in the mid-'80s. And that's when we got ours. And
you found a newspaper clipping or something to that effect, didn't you?
I did, and I'll try and get it and slap it up on the screen because it's neat. Because the on the newspaper clipping, and it was, I want to say November of 1984. Can't remember the exact date, but it was interesting that there were two Toys R Us's that either opened on the same day or very close to one another because they were doing a celebration.
Yeah, kind of shared a grand opening.
Yeah, they kind of shared like a soft grand opening, and it was really cute because in that clipping that Mark mentioned, there were, you know, guests that were going to arrive and celebrate, like Darth Vader and other personalities of the time.
That's kind of a you know, a memory I've got of Toys R Us's from when I was a kid. That I think we were living in Florida at the time, and there was one of these grand openings, and you know, you see it on TV with the commercials, you know, Darth Vader and whoever else is going to be there. I don't even know like what the other characters were because it didn't even matter.
Yeah,
you know,
Darth Vader, your ears perked up.
Yeah, and so, you know, I guess I must have bugged my mom to, you know, take me to Toys R Us for, you know, to see Darth Vader. And I remember that we got there, but we must have got there late, I guess. Because I remember getting there and just seeing that they were all in the back, and they were all just kind of like walking, like they were leaving at the time. They're just walking off and going through like that back door, and, you know, just like waving by or whatever. Like they'd already come out and, you know, waved at the kids and whatever, and they're on their way out. But
did they have any music or anything playing?
I don't remember. I doubt it, but I don't remember. But
just watch that big flowing black cape.
Yeah, but
away.
I do remember, like, I caught that glimpse of Darth Vader from a distance, and like in my mind, my child's mind, that was like the real Darth Vader. I mean, you know, he looked amazing.
Yeah.
You know, not like, you know, your recollection of like RoboCop from like the
sweatpants and a Halloween mask.
Yeah. But you know, I mean, I saw him from a distance.
Yeah.
Who knows what he looked like, but he was like the real Darth Vader. And even though I only got that quick glimpse, it was like the most amazing thing.
You were really satisfied.
Yeah, I was satisfied.
That's great. That's a good story.
Throw a black suit on and be Darth Vader.
When you get closer, the illusion starts to rub off a bit. He's just wearing like a black sweatshirt and some boots, some like regular old boots,
like a plastic garbage bag for a cape.
But maybe it's for the best that you only saw it from far away. Because
it might be, yeah.
You've embellished it in your kid brain so much, it just is Darth Vader.
You know, and I kind of remember too, like, you know how kids are. It's just like, well, okay, that's it. Let's shop now.
Yeah. That was it.
You were in the toy store.
Yeah. I saw a Vader. Now let's look at toys.
Was that the first time you'd been in one? Also?
No, I not likely.
Okay.
I don't remember though, really.
The thing I remember the first time I went into Toys R Us is they had, you know how when you would walk into Toys R Us, they would kind of lead you through the usually seasonal things. Or if it was Christmas time, there'd be sleds.
Yeah.
And if it was summertime, there'd be all kinds of pool accessories or whatever.
Yeah, that entryway was like a long hallway. Mm-hmm. And then you just kind of like come into where you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd walk in through those double doors and then, you know, walk right past those rainbow tiles. And it's already such a unique experience. And you know, as a kid, this is your place. This is a special place for you. It's, you know, your parents would go to the hardware store or the grocery or to shop for clothes, all very boring things. And then you might have that little instance of an aisle or two that had toys, and that was your moment to shine. Well, this place was all for you. And yeah, like you said, you'd walk down that long aisle, you'd snake through whatever junk, that seasonal things they were trying to peddle off. But it seems like right near like where backpacks and things like that would go, they put some sort of like little featured toy that they wanted to put out. And Transformers was very new at the time, and they had a lot of those G1 Transformers just right there.
Yeah.
First time I believe I've really ever seen the big ones for sure. I mean, the medium-sized cars and the big ones. I think I'd seen perhaps the mini cars, and I'd had a sideswipe, I think, at that point. But yeah, it was just to see them all there like that, neatly stacked, and it didn't even really seem as anyone had taken, like it was still perfect. There wasn't like one taken out where there was a hole in that display. It was just all there, shiny and new.
You talked about...
And they used to be on shelves differently back then, too. I mean, I remember you'd see this long section that was just packed with boxes of Transformers all lined up. Nowadays, you go to a Walmart or even a Toys R Us when it existed. You got it basically 2 feet wide and just on cards, and it was so different then.
Yeah, man,
but you could all these boxes just lined up down for several feet.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah. I'm hung up on a part. You were talking about how you think it's like the first time that you saw the big ones and that you maybe have seen like the mini cars, but then you mentioned also that you already had Sideswipe. I consider Sideswipe...
Not Sideswipe. The Cliff Jumper? No, not Cliff Jumper. What are some of the small mini ones? Not Cliff Jumper, but there's...
Cliff Jumper, Bumblebee...
Yeah, but there's another red one. Wind Charger?
Wind Charger?
Wind Charger's red.
I think it might have been him.
Okay.
But it was one of the little mini cars.
Because that's where it hung me up. Because I'm like, well,
I'm sorry.
He's not as big as Prime, but Sideswipe was in a box.
Mark was very polite and didn't cut me off and let me finish my... Because he probably caught that too.
I'm sitting here twitching.
No, not the Lamborghini Countach Sideswipe. That's my bad. I'm sorry. No, I just meant one of the little mini cars. One of the ones you'd probably see in a Walgreens. You'd pick it up. And you're like, hey, this is not a GoBot. Because GoBots were a thing and already out by that point. But... Yeah. Ironically, it was like a parent where they get you the wrong thing, but this thing was so much cooler after all.
Yeah.
But anyways, what were we? Where were we?
Well, I'm not sure where you're going with that, but you were talking about it's the first time you've seen the bigger Transformers.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to speak to the aura and the way it made you feel when you would walk into Toys R Us as a little person, even. We're grown-ups now, but when you're a little person and everything's just so much more giant anyway.
Well, and it's just so amazing.
Yeah, it's just everything there. And every section of the Toys R Us just had something, just like Mark said, there were just tons of everything.
Yeah.
You'd have the section, the legendary game slip section. You had at least a couple of aisles dedicated to just, Nintendo, Game Boy, Genesis, whatever.
Yeah, and you mentioned the game slip section because they were like on those little cards and you could like flip up and like look at the back of the box and take the slip out if you were going to go buy the game. And I don't know if did you ever do this where like if there was a game that you wanted to get but maybe you didn't have the money for it right then or whatever, that you take like one of those slips and like hide it somewhere,
squirrel it away.
Yeah, squirrel it away to like ensure that when you are ready to get it. And I don't know why kids do this because you probably would never have the money.
It's a desperation thing. Sometimes you just beg and you really pour it on. You might wear your mom or dad down.
It's like to ensure that there would be one there whenever you could get one.
Well, because the system was, you mentioned the slips, but they kept this magical gateway like paywall, or just gated fenced thing where there was a guy that worked in it, and after you check out, you'd do that little happy walk
and there's like
over
the
to
anticipation. Yeah, like when you go and you pay for you give the clerk or whatever the slip,
right?
And, you pay for that, and then you make that trip to the magical cage.
I can only imagine it's equal to when an Olympic athlete wins a medal and they're walking up to their stand to get their medal like draped over their head. Maybe that's a bit much, but
and it's kind of like kids like fascination with like the garbage man kind of thing, because it's like you see like you're watching the guy like he takes the slip and turns around and like finds your game, and you're sitting there thinking about how amazing it would be to have that job, and be surrounded by like all those games.
When in reality he's burning up in there. It's super hot. He hates his job.
Right. Like, man, just to be so close and to be able to touch.
Well, one more quick thing too is I didn't think of this until just now, but it was great to be able to flip that card up and look at the game screenshots. Because if you were to go to a Walmart or someplace, they always would keep the games behind the counter, so you couldn't feel it and touch it. It was like really the first time that you could kind of grab a hold of it, and look at it. without
Even
bothering the
just
person.
kind of a paper representation of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we didn't obviously have online or anything.
Yeah,
so.
it'd be like behind like the glass door or whatever.
Mhm.
You'd have to ask somebody to come open the door.
Or in like the case of KB, they would just have like a bunch of tags.
Behind the
Yeah, and they would
counter.
hang them on a little rack, but you didn't have access to them. You couldn't just
Yeah.
walk around and start looking
And
at
you're
it.
like, I want that.
Nowadays, there's so many games everywhere, and you have used copies of games, so they just shove it outside. Like they don't even care. They're just like outside the store. Like, well, they might walk away with it. If so, so what? But very different times back then. Mark, I wanted to pause here for a moment, and we'll get back to the nostalgia of walking through the store. I wanted to bring up the fact that you actually worked at a Toys R Us. You have, something that Nick and I have never done. We've never worked at a toy store. That is a dream job to a kid, anyway. What kind of led you to working at Toys R Us, and are there any specific memories that you can recall that you can kind of share?
Well, this is my first job outside of the college that I went to. So I'd come home for the summer and needed a summer job to kind of bide my time and make a little bit of extra income. Toys R Us seemed a natural fit because of, hey, that's stuff I like.
Yeah.
So I got a job as a storeroom clerk. So I was there for all the trucks that would come in. I'd go in there with the big pallet jacks, bring all the boxes out, find out what things need to go out in the shelves and make sure they got into the shelves. I was also responsible for building the larger play sets or bicycles that would also need to either go out on the floor, or sometimes a customer could pay a little bit of extra money and get a pre-assembled bike or play set, and then they'd pick it up from us. And so I did a lot of that. I was always kind of in that back room. You didn't necessarily see me too much.
Yeah.
But I definitely built a lot of bicycles and helped a lot of people get large, unwieldy things to their cars.
Nice.
Okay, Mark, now here's the big question that's on everybody's mind.
Okay.
Did you go in the cage?
Ooh.
Sadly, I did not. It was in a different part of the store.
He never
I did not have
went
access
in the
to that part of the
cage.
store with the video games. I only got to, look at that from afar like you guys did.
Couldn't touch.
Yeah. You never had an opportunity to just like sneak in there and just touch everything and then run out.
Seriously, security on the video games was always very high.
Oh, I'm sure it was tight.
You have to have special clearance.
Gotcha.
I did have a discount. I probably bought a game or two while I was there, but I don't actually remember which ones if I did.
Yeah. So, all right. So you mentioned you would unload the trucks, and one thing that I've never done, because I've never worked in retail in this way, is you kind of don't really know what's in the box, right, until you open it up. Or I guess they have an invoice. Do you? I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you know what you're opening up?
The shipments.
Yeah, the boxes. They're taped, and you get a bunch of them. Do you know?
I did not.
Yeah.
But I believe that our manager did. I do believe there was some kind of invoice whereby the store would know what it was getting, but I did not have access to that. I just saw whatever was there when it came in.
Like, did you ever see like a big box that had Hasbro on it and be like,
Certainly.
oh, it's all
Some
the
of this is actually the same
Transformers.
today. Sometimes if you go to a Target, for example, if they are stocking the shelves, you'll see some of these boxes that say Hasbro, Transformers, deluxe set, 4 pieces, something like that, that tells you, broadly speaking, what's inside. It probably won't tell you these are the Terracons.
Yeah.
But it'll tell you what wave it is.
Nice.
Now-
And so you can, if you know what you're looking for, you can get the right box that way.
You mentioned before that, you'd use the pallet jack and unload the trucks and then
Oh, yes.
make sure that things were on the shelf and whatever. But you couldn't just go straight from unload it on the truck to put it on the shelf. It had to go into inventory. Right?
Well, yeah. There were places to store all those boxes in that back room. So they'd sit there for a while people made sure that we had what we were supposed to have, and they'd go onto the shelves from there after sitting for a bit.
So
Sometimes for a long while if there was no room on the shelves.
if you were walking the aisle and you noticed like, oh, this section is a little bare, then you knew like where to go, like to find that like specific toy or whatever to restock the shelf.
that wasn't my responsibility, but certainly that was theoretically possible.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you really never walked the aisles ever, did you? I think you were saying you mostly just stayed in the back.
You just built bikes.
I was pretty much
like the Hunchback or something. Like, nah, like, don't let Mark out of the back. But Mark would have had that, that perfect ringside seat of Darth Vader coming through those doors, and he pulls his helmet off.
He's sitting there like making a bike, and hey Vader,
hey, what's going on, man? But certainly
the main time they would have let us out of the back every night would be if we were there for closing. We'd have to take those giant flat brooms and push them all around.
Oh, you had to do that too? They didn't just have a cleaning crew separately for that kind of thing? I would have thought they did.
Drive the Zamboni around.
Oh, okay. Oh, man, people are so dirty and nasty too. I'm sure like every single night you'd be surprised seeing how much dirt and garbage.
The other thing we do at that basically that same time is you'd always spot check the shelves a bit. So if people were careless and put something on the ground or on a different part of the shelf than where it belonged, you'd pick it up off the floor, put it back where it belongs. So the shelves looked all neat.
Yeah.
And you could find what you're supposed to be able to find. So you would be finding Barbies in the Transformer section or vice versa.
Yeah, I was going to say, now that's a classic Ron move where I would see like a toy that I wanted. I'd stash it somewhere where it wouldn't be anywhere near where it normally goes.
Yeah.
Just so I could kind of return to it later.
Just like the little tickets for me.
Yeah, I would just stash them somewhere.
Yeah.
So a girl looking at Rainbow Bright dolls, they're not going to care if there's a Transformer back there. They're just going to go,
what's this Optimus Prime doing?
Stupid boy toy doing in my stuff. But that's for sure something I would do. And I would always kind of remember like, I wonder how many people do this and how much trouble it is for them to put it all back. But
suffice it to say, it probably wouldn't last more than a day or two. It's basically until somebody finds it at closing and decides it needs to go back where it's supposed to.
Yeah. Now, did you have a magical moment where you'd open up a box and then, Transformer?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah?
This was the era of Generation 2, so it wasn't just that specific toys were coming out, but Transformers themselves were kind of back on the shelves for the first time after a bit of a gap. So
that was a huge deal. The Generation 2, comeback.
Did you see Light come out of the box and Choir of Angels sing?
Optimus Prime, look.
Well, it is true that some of those designs were rather bright.
Yeah. Yeah. They kind of made the aura. Let's see. All right, so let's get back into, we'll just say, touring the store. So you did have the video game section, and I remember to the left of that, you had another aisle that stretched from almost the entire length of the store. And that
board games.
Board games, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And, Mark, I know that you're a huge board game fanatic. I certainly love board games a lot. My brother got me into playing them a bunch when I was little. So to see all those games that I never even knew existed, like niche games, just some of the funnest games I'd ever played. Just they weren't the classic, not like Milton Bradley type games. Because you can still
they were there too, but it wasn't just exclusively that. It did seem there was a lot larger a selection at the time.
One of the funnest memories I have of picking out one of those board games that I, was not something I was aware of was my brother was working at Toys R Us, and I guess it went on clearance, and it was a huge board game. It took up so much space, so I imagine they wanted that space back and went on clearance. And I want to say it was called Torpedo Run.
Introducing Torpedo Run, a Floor Wars game from Milton Bradley.
Dive! Enemy fleet attacking! Man your battle stations! Fire 1! Fire 2! Our destroyer's been hit! Red alert! Red alert! The flagship's lifting astern! We're doomed! Fire all remaining torpedoes! Ah, we got him! Direct hit!
Have a war on your floor. Play Torpedo Run, new from Milton Bradley.
This game was Torpedo Run, and you laid it out on the floor. It was a very large board game, and each side had the same ships, kind of like Battleship. There was a destroyer and like a submarine and some other little ships, and each one, instead of little pegs to take it down, there were these little slots in each one of them, and one of the ships you didn't set out to be shot was like a little gun, a little firing ship. Mm-hmm. And it was filled with these little discs. And you would just shoot them out of the little ship, and you were trying to get the disc to go in those little slots, and then it would activate a spring, and then, it would just blow apart, basically. And kind of similar to Crossfire. It was real frantic, and then you'd shoot all your ships, and then you'd have to run over and grab them back and continue shooting until all those ships were destroyed. But I would have never seen that at Walmart or Target or any place like that.
Yeah.
And I would have never known to look for it on Amazon, because you have to be kind of specific. And, you can go down the rabbit hole of suggestions by Amazon, but it's not the same. Mark, can you think of any memories specific to like the board game section?
Well, sure. My big thing was always game shows. So at that time, there was a lot more game shows, usually during the mornings, and a lot of them would have home versions. So the wall-to-wall array at Toys R Us was such a way that it was almost all alphabetized, made it really easy to go, okay, I'll look up the Joker's Wild, see if there's a game there. Nope. Tic-Tac-Toe, aha, there's one. Hollywood Squares.
So you were just kind of like going on faith that it might already exist.
All the home games with the game shows I could find.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of did a similar thing that, and I was never even really big into board games, but I would always, every visit, you always did like the same things every visit.
Yeah.
So you'd go down and I'd look down that board game aisle and I'd kind of look for like the like video game board games.
That was your jam.
Yeah, I mean, because there was the Legend of Zelda board game, which I wish I got, but I never got that one.
Yeah.
And like the Super Mario Brothers board game, and then there was like Donkey Kong and Frogger,
yeah,
Q*bert and
Yep.
Pac-Man. I mean, they all had if it was super popular, it had a board game.
And to continue off of that, just that thought, there were lots of TV and movie themed board games.
Well, yeah, and then I was going to lead into like there were cartoon ones because there would be like the Ninja Turtles board game, and there was like a Ghostbusters board game. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so you could spend a great deal of time just looking at that board game aisle.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, they had the kind of the more boutique, more expensive toys in the glass cases.
So I guess the way to describe my looking at board games, I'd be looking for like the popular IPs.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's a kid way to think about it. Sure. Because you just didn't you didn't know whether a game was fun. You just recognized the IP. Like, oh, this game looks fun. So I'm going to miss having that opportunity to walk around and take a look at that long line of that just aisle of games. It went from like the ceiling to the floor. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot. Well, maybe it didn't stretch all the way to the ceiling. Maybe I could just be remembering it.
It seemed like it.
Yeah, it seemed like me because then you wouldn't be able to reach it. But yeah, it was majestical.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so then they had the little places where there would be your little robots that you could program and your sticks type things where you kind of like hit the little, you know what I'm talking about? There,
No.
Wherever you would go, you drum on some surface and it would make like drum sounds. But just electronics that would be out on display and you could kind of see it. There would always be like this video camera that I would look at and eyeball, like, ooh, I would love to have that.
Oh, what this would kind of be, I think, in that area. And it was around that time when there would have been like the Darth Vader, like, when I was a kid, that I remember they were like these lightsabers, like Star Wars lightsabers.
Your step must be quick. Your action, sure.
Yoda puppet and the Force lightsaber, each sold separately.
As you move your lightsaber, the sound of the Force moves with you. It can be a powerful friend. That is your first lesson. Learn it well.
The Force is my lightsaber.
The Force is in all things, even you, my young Jedi.
The Force lightsaber and new Yoda puppet, each sold separately from Kenner's Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection.
Oh, those.
And, yeah, they were so cool. They weren't like the telescoping ones, like they have now. They were just always extended. It was like a plastic lightsaber. It was real, real big. And it's kind of oversized. And it had like these hollow kind of holes in it so that when you swung it, it would kind of make that
cool
kind of sound effect,
Yeah.
Those were really cool. I think they were called like the Power of the Force lightsabers or something like that. I've got a picture of it.
Okay. I would like to see that because I don't remember it.
They would probably scoff at these things as sounding nothing like a lightsaber.
Oh, yeah.
But
like
us, they were really cool.
The stuff that's available now, I mean, yeah, it doesn't even come
You
close.
can't think of it in those terms.
But yeah, at the time, it was like the most amazing thing.
For sure. I would have played with a stick and pretended it was a lightsaber for hours.
Oh, and I'm sure I did.
Yeah. And so were they pretty pricey? Like what, or was it like a wiffle ball bat type material?
I don't think they were, but I never got one.
Yeah. Did they have different colors?
I don't remember.
Yeah, there was there was red and blue for sure, and then I think when Return of the Jedi came out, there was a green. And
okay.
I want to say there was a yellow for whatever reason, but I'm pretty sure I saw yellow.
I know there was yellow on the figures themselves. I don't remember about the lightsaber accessories.
Yeah, I don't know,
wow.
but there were the typical movie colors.
But they kept them in that area?
I'm pretty sure that I saw like it was kind of like on an end cap. I mean, because it was like in a cardboard kind of stand up thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and they just kind of stood up in this cardboard thing, and they just kind of like stuck it in whatever, you know, wherever corner, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a barrel that could move wherever they wanted to.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I gotcha. So from there, if I'm not mistaken, there would be like an aisle of educational type toys, books on tapes, and
I'm sure they existed, but we weren't interested.
Yeah, you're getting into some of the stuff where I passed up.
But that was just me. I devoured every square inch of that place. I didn't even care. I mean, yeah, I'd skip past the dolls and things like that. Even though that like pink Corvette that Gizmo drove around from Gremlins was pretty awesome.
like that very back wall, like all the way to the right of the building. Like I don't have a clue what was over there.
I remember it was kids, like baby stuff.
Oh, okay.
They would have like, you know, toddler toys and things like that.
I was gonna guess like the discounted items, you know, like,
and maybe some of that too. But so there was that one side that had, you know, those items that I'm remembering. Then the next aisle was a great interest for me, is where they kept in glass cases all of the premier like radio controlled cars.
Yeah.
That I was way into, you know, in the like 80s, 87, 88, that time period.
Here comes fun on wheels. Tyco Turbo Hoppers. These sons of guns pack turbocharged engines. With your kids at the radio controls, there ain't no place they can't go. Turn them and they slip under, over, around the darndest places. Send them cannonballing off a cliff. Yahoo! There's no stopping them. Want more speed? Give it a blast of turbo power. If it's the one and only Tyco Turbo Hopper, it's a winner. Get your kids the real Turbo Hoppers, only from...
I was obsessed with these radio-controlled cars by Tyco. So I would kind of drool over them. They had always had these ones, too, that like I can't imagine anyone ever bought, like a radio-controlled boat, this huge boat that you'd have to have a pond or something to play with. Yeah. Then there was like a section where that was my lane, where it was kind of your knockoff version of those cars. And they were like $20, $30 cheaper, but also were radio controlled cars. And you flip over on the other side, they had this is something that was very popular that I don't think is necessarily all that popular nowadays, but these like slot car tracks.
Right.
You know, where you'd apply a little pressure to the grip and they would go
like
around.
So sensitive too.
Oh yeah.
I remember like my friend Eric had one and we'd play with.
Yeah.
And you know, you could never do it full force because it would just fly off.
They came with rails that you could install, and if you didn't put those rails on to more or less the G forces of the car kept it on the track because of the rails.
I mean, it was like a competition just to even make a lap.
I know, right?
Skipping off the track at all.
You were very good if you could make it all the way around without a rail. But yeah, I remember very fondly of the ones that, you know, there was this one that glowed in the dark, but then it also went up a wall.
They're here. Zero gravity cliffhangers. Cause you race them upside down, plummeting through the giant loop as you reach for new speeds and use your skill to master the death-defying spiral and blast up the wall to zero gravity. Then turn out the lights and your ignite glow. Now make your final move to take the lead and win. Zero gravity cliffhangers. Now with Night Glow. New from Tyco. Go.
So that was a real popular set. But there was this one train set that was majestical to me.
The Transformer train?
Yes.
Yes.
There was
this way.
And Mark had an opportunity. You know what I'm going to say. We were at BotCon, the last one that we all attended together, and this guy was selling it, and you wanted it. I know you wanted it, but you were thinking along the lines of
travel, because BotCon was like here, you know, basically.
Yeah, you had to lug it back to like
he's in California.
Right. So it just wasn't a practical thing.
If it was local for him, I bet he would have got it.
I will tell you, I found one on Etsy that I haven't bought it yet, but I popped it on my wish list.
Don't wait too long.
And this way, it was in the box and everything. I mean, it was beat up, you know, but
it had a little wear and tear. But the fact that he had the box and it wasn't just ripped to shreds was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And you know, it was just so vaguely related to Transformers anyway. Like I don't think the train transformed or anything, or maybe it did a little bit.
I don't know. Mark could probably tell us, but it was just like an electric train with like Autobot symbols on it.
Just branded with Transformers logos and things.
I can't actually tell you. I've done some research since then.
Oh yeah, late on.
Tyco did the train set.
I remember that.
They also did train sets for G.I. Joe, for A-Team, I think at least one other property. I don't remember which ones. With one or two differences, they were all exactly the same.
Gotcha.
Mask, I think they had, so they even probably still had transforming caboose. It was probably exactly the same, but it was all Mask.
I'm gonna have to look that up on eBay now.
It's funny how many of those it's like the exact same thing.
Yeah.
They just put like a different logo.
Yeah, they just slap the different IP on it, and you don't care.
Call it a day.
Yeah, that's how it went. Well, repurposing toy brands is nothing new. I mean, even back then.
Right.
What was the what became the Ewok playset? The Planet of the Apes tree?
I mean, that was probably a few things. It was like was that like a Monchichi like little house or something? I don't know.
Originally, though, I think it was Planet of the Apes, wasn't it?
I don't know.
I don't remember that specifically. Though you probably have seen the episodes of The Toys That Made Us that dealt with He-Man.
Oh, those were great.
Yeah.
Apparently, Battle Cat came from one of those previous Mattel sets. It was something completely unrelated, and they said, "Here, just use this Panther."
I loved how too they'd have the little graphics and like sound effects, and it would be like, bleh. You know, like they would slap some clay on it. It's great. The Toys That Made Us on Netflix. If you guys haven't watched
The Toys That Made Us Star Trek is just full of that kind of stuff. I mean, there's stuff that has nothing to do with Star Trek.
The hardship of fans of Star Trek and
the Star Trek one had me rolling on the floor, man.
The Spock.
It would have like the helmet with like the red light on it, and be like, Star Trek. You know?
Yeah, for a long time they just didn't care, right? I mean, they just take anything and put a Star Trek logo on it. Like, there you go, kid.
They just have like a tank or something and Star Trek.
Poor Star Trek fans. They look over and see the Star Wars toys and how great they had it. And they were just like the little redheaded stepchildren of the toy universe, at least of the space universe.
Now I know, talking about repurposing stuff. I remember the Ghostbusters Firehouse that, because I remember seeing this on like one of the like JCPenney's or Sears catalog or something, that when they were making toys for Police Academy.
Yeah.
They used the Firehouse for the Police Academy. Oh, wow. And I recognized it. I was like, that's the Ghostbuster Firehouse.
What are you doing? I remember you telling me that, and I was blown away. You were like, you're going to have to Google it. And I did, and there it was. It was totally the Firehouse.
You could totally tell.
That's great. So let's see. Across from there, I want to say they had the sporting goods. Like if you kept traveling on the other side of all the video games, there was your sporting goods, T-ball stands and, bats and gloves and all the balls. Now, from there, it gets a bit fuzzy. I want to say on the other side of that was the areas where you could get all those like little personalized license plates for your bike. There was like just knickknacks like that.
Section for that?
Well, yeah, kind of. They didn't have bikes there because the bikes were in another section of the store, hanging really high
through the middle.
Yeah, like straight through the middle. I want to say it kind of like started merging, between girl stuff and boy stuff. And there was like a section where like girls and boys would be shopping here. And I just loved looking for my name on those little racks. There were just tons of those racks. Sure. And, like my name was spelled RONN technically. So you never could find that. Oh, yeah. Like now you shorten it to Ron. But even then, it could have been Ronald or Ronnie. You hardly ever get exactly the right thing. Now you two, no problem. Mark and Nick, just tons of those. Yeah, whole racks of just Mark and Nick.
I do remember, at times, looking for my name on those. And,
yeah,
but
it wasn't just those things. But
I can't really.
I'll bet they never got it right for your full name.
Oh, Nicholas, yeah, because I spelled Nicholas.
You spelled a little bit with a K, right?
Everybody else is an H.
Yeah. What is wrong with parents? They always got to get cute. Now, but yeah, from there it gets super, super fuzzy. I can't necessarily, because then you're like the front in that point, you're looking at cash registers, and maybe it was, like I said, kid stuff, baby stuff. Mark, can you fill in that black hole of my memory of what the other stuff was?
Honestly, I can't. I have my own map in my head, which I think it may even be a different store at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm having trouble filling in with yours.
Okay. Well, we both, our childhood Toys R Us was the same one. And
and they changed around.
It should be the same one, yes, but I've had experience with so many others by now.
Because even the same store would like drastically rearrange and change things through time.
It didn't stay that way forever. Now,
this is true. We could even be talking about different eras.
Yeah.
Now I remember.
I mean, when you worked there, did it still have like where the video game's still in that same place with the flap and grab the ticket on that left side?
Basically, yes. I want to say that was parallel to the board game wall, just one aisle in.
Because then there was even like a time where they brought it up front, and I want to say it was on the left side, but like right at the entrance, it was just like right there. And then,
oh gosh, I don't remember that at all.
And then they changed it. I don't know if I may be thinking of a different store or not, but then it ended up, on that right side, right, that very right front corner.
Yeah, and it's been that way ever since.
Where it stayed.
Right.
But yeah, I want to say that for a short amount of time, it had changed over there, but I'm not sure.
It's possible. And then the way it ended up being was and I guess I understand why they wanted a more open layout. Maybe they didn't have as many toys as they used to, and it was a way to make the store look more full, or who knows.
I wonder about that sometimes.
Yeah, but when we remember going as kids, it was this long aisleway after long aisleway, and they were very tall shelves, and you could get lost in that store. It seems like at the end, you could kind of see the whole store almost from any place.
Yeah. But what it ended up with, before they closed, the layout was dramatically different. Though.
Oh, way different. And it was like Mark mentioned, too, with the Transformers, you just kind of had that small space sectioned off. Yeah. There wasn't a really big... Yeah, it wasn't a really large selection of Transformers. You were sharing it with... Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And,
it seems like
whatever.
The whole middle of the store was kids' clothes.
Yeah,
too.
kids' clothes. Yeah, kids' clothes and whatever thing they were trying to sell off. like sell items or whatever. Knickknacks like candy and magazines or whatever. Just things that they want to just shove, get out the door, get out of there. But and I was
although. Magazines and stuff, I do have fond memories. This could only have been for a couple of years, if that. But the folks that put together Panini, I think is the name of the company, they put together sticker albums, and they put one together for Transformers the movie. So they had a book that was a Transformers the movie sticker album book, and then they'd sell these little packs full of stickers.
Yeah, I remember those.
Oh, you have it?
I think I have it. I think it might be...
And we'd go back again and again just buying up those packs of stickers. They were eventually on clearance. They weren't too expensive. We never did ourselves complete the entire album. Maybe you did.
That's a great pull, Mark. I forgot about those little stickers that you could buy.
But that was always Toys R Us I went to get those.
Now, Nick's found what I'm talking about. I wonder, at least I think he did.
I'll be able to tell you immediately if it's the same thing. That's it. That's absolutely it.
Yeah, you had inside. You had to, remember, these are familiar, I'm sure to you. You had to have the little red.
You didn't complete yours either. I see the red gaps.
Oh yeah, I did not complete mine. In fact, I probably didn't have very many at all. But yeah, here we go. And there were lots of books just like these, and I've forgotten all about them until just now. And they'd have the number.
They had tons of these.
Oh yeah. You just take whatever number you got and you plug it in, and there'd be like a little caption underneath of it. And yeah, I didn't get very many of them at all, I guess. But
man, that's almost like the best part of making your, however often you were able to go to Toys R Us trips.
Oh, there's
you
one of
over
Optimus
there
all beaten up.
is getting like 1 or 2 more packs of stickers.
Yeah.
And going through and like, oh, here's a new one. Oh, there's a duplicate.
These were not things that you got just for Christmas. You know, you just maybe you were a good boy that week or something, and your parents would just get you a little pack of stickers. But yeah, there's you know, that's great, man. I pulled this out of the you know.
I honestly have no idea whatever happened to the one that we used to have. I don't have it personally.
Yeah, you know, I bet it's, you know, this one's in a lot better shape than ours, I think.
Yeah, it's funny that I was able to hang on to that and it be in a pretty
Mom
decent
and
shape.
Dad's.
You know, I would think so, but
I'll take some pictures for people on Facebook.
Discovered it in the years I've been since then.
Man, you don't have anything.
I don't have a lot of them. That's
There's
true.
like entire pages of just.
And
nothing.
probably what happened was I got the book and a couple of packs right with the book, and I just maybe never got any. But I remember seeing those packs, and if I had seen them discounted, I probably would have gotten more. But
I forget how long they were available discounted, but it seemed like we did get a lot of packs that way.
Yeah. But yeah, I probably got it as a gift and maybe a couple of packs, and that's just all I ever got. I mean, there's hundreds. There's literally hundreds of stickers in the set. So you know, you're seeing like 1 or 2 stickers per page. It's not that bad.
I remember.
It's frustrating, of course, when you finally do get above a certain threshold, and then you never get any new ones. It's
duplicates. Yeah, welcome to baseball card collecting too.
Man, remember when they were like, you know, the like mail order things?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know, turn in like these proofs of purchases and get this Transformers backpack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's one in the back of this magazine. But by the way, I'm gonna take some pictures and show this on the Facebook page.
Oh, by all means.
You know, like Facebook, the BitGeeks or whatever, because it's, you know, if you're a Transformers fan or just you don't even have to be Transformers. I'm sure there were versions of this for Barbie and versions of that for Care Bears and versions of that for you name it. They did them. It wasn't just.
I know there was one for Alf.
Oh yeah, okay. I probably might have had. I was a huge Alf fan back in the day. But that's a great memory, Mark. Good call. And I'd put that up there and really just forgot about it. Okay, guys, this has been really fun, and I didn't really anticipate us talking for as long as we did. But you know, we have a lot of strong feelings on this topic, and I have more things that I want to talk about. So we're going to go ahead and just cut this episode right here. We're going to call this part 1, and you know, we'll rejoin next week for the conclusion, where we'll talk about Toys R Us some more, and we'll also go into some other stores that we wanted to mention.
Okay.
Other toy stores that have been closed, and there's been a lot of time in between now and then. We can kind of remember them more fondly.
Yeah.
But
sounds good.
Yeah. So just as I'm signing off, I just want to remind everybody that we're both an audio, like an audio format podcast and a video. We record it in 4K and we put it out there on our YouTube channel. And I think the majority of you people would know us from the YouTube channel, which is, and if you're audio, you should know that we're at youtube.com/BitGeek. That's where you can find us if you want to see the video version. And if you didn't know that we had an audio version, we do. We're uploaded weekly on all the popular, you know, services like iTunes and Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, you name it. We're there, and you can just listen to us more conveniently, because not everybody has the luxury of sitting in front of their computer for long periods of time.
Right.
You can just listen to us while you work or in the car driving back and forth from work. I get it. I do it too. I want to go ahead and mention where you can find us. If you want to follow us on social media, I'm at Ron Avis. Very simple.
And I'm at Nicholas J. Wright.
Mark, where can we find you?
I am on Twitter at GB Blackrock, or you can just look for my name, Mark Baker-Wright, or on Facebook at Blackrock's Toybox, which is connected to my blog.
Good plug. Everybody check that out. I'm going to plug it every time until, you know, you're famous. Of course, we would have to be famous first. One of us is going to break, and then we're going to elevate the other, you know, at one point. And, you know, since I'm not going to mention that. All right. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about that. You can check out our Facebook page. I don't know if I mentioned our Facebook page or not, but it's the BitGeeks. Yeah. You can search for us there, where Nick isn't kind of taking on the mantle of posting pictures.
Yeah, hopefully I'll have pictures on the Facebook page, you know, related to the episodes.
Yep. And, you know, thanks for taking care of that. That's pretty much all I got to say about that, I think, as far as housekeeping goes. thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week where we'll pick up on part 2. And I've been your host, Ron Avis.
And I'm Nick Wright.
And I'm Mark Baker-Wright.
We'll see you next time.